Hello, Guardian friends. Thank you for inviting me to present Exoconscious Humans, Free Minds, and Neural Rights. It's a privilege to join you from my home in Phoenix, Arizona. My heart merges with all of you during your conference festivities, your study, and all the enlightenment that this conference is bringing to you. I respect and honor your work and your community. Our agenda today includes discussing the principles of exoconsciousness, an outline of the forces influencing us, our natural neural rights, the Exoconscious Bill of Rights, and I'm also sharing with you the exciting launch of the Exoconscious Humans TV program. I would like to elaborate on the foundational principles of what it means to be an exoconscious human. Who are we as exoconscious humans? We are not genetically altered, mind-controlled, or environmentally damaged. We are not robots or technology hybrids. We are organic, evolving, physical, spiritual beings, humans. Our path is in harmony with nature, our planet, and the cosmos. New frequencies are coming from the cosmos and benevolent beings, and they are available for us. They support and surround us. We evolve as the Earth makes its cosmic passage. We learn and apply information from many sources such as solar activity, electromagnetic pulses, astrology, astronomy, and space travel and research. Ancient information has always been there for us, but that ancient information is also being modified by the current human consciousness. And this includes information from ancient mystery schools that has always been available to us if we just look for it, religion, science, and solar cosmic knowledge. This knowledge of ancient mysteries has been held inviolate or sacred. But as human consciousness evolves, this ancient information also changes as we change. Most of us are trained to live life by focusing on the outer world and adjusting our life to fit in. Exoconsciousness flips that paradigm. Exoconscious humans acknowledge that we are uniquely psychic, tuned to a different frequency. We all are resonating with an intelligent cosmos through contact, and we are deeply aware of our soul and spirit. We begin with who we are. We live our ET spiritual multidimensional contact from the inside out. For exoconscious humans, contact is less about what we witness in the outer world, such as expert opinions, news narratives, media entertainment, and more about how we evolve internally through our personal experience, our innate intelligence and psychic ability, and importantly, the co-creative work we do with ETs, multidimensionals, and spiritual beings. Contact integrates into our life of high psychic abilities. We determine who we are as exoconscious humans. We play a role in global disclosure. We determine the future trends that define the impact of us as experiencers. We exoconscious humans advance and refine our psychic abilities and intelligence, such as ESP or extrasensory perception, clairvoyance, telepathy, psychokinesis, remote viewing, mediumship, and healing. All of these are available to us as exoconscious humans. For us, psychic and spiritual discernment is a priority. We learn discernment through our experience and others who led us on our journey. We determine what beings or energies are benevolent or malevolent. We determine how we protect ourselves as highly psychic individuals. how we discriminate natural and artificial forces that affect our minds and body. And this discrimination is what we're going to be talking about today, and it's gaining rapidly in importance. Through all of these discernment endeavors, we develop practical discernment tools that each of us use daily. And as a community, we encourage advancing discernment in all of our members. Our mission is to advance the leadership of exoconscious humans. We nurture one another's co-creations that support health and peace on Earth and our cosmos. Our goal is to introduce effective inventions and innovations by exoconscious humans for health, such as bringing in healing protocols and technology, nourishment with agriculture harmonious to nature, communication without surveillance or control, and establishing an economy of peace and prosperity for all, peace on Earth and peace in space. So today we will discuss the transhuman forces influencing exoconscious humans. Some of this may sound familiar to you. Other information may be new. Please, I just ask you to keep an open mind and heart. Because as we advance as exoconscious humans, we are confronted with confusing, often traumatic events and influences. However, if we have done our personal work, we know how to regulate our emotions and calm our hearts and minds and nervous system. With this calm knowing, we can view reality with a mature vision because we are no longer children. We are integrated and mature, and we can accept responsibility for looking squarely at our reality. Only then can we bring our psychic spiritual power to the earth and to all of our fellow human beings. So there are three major forces affecting us today. Those are geoengineering, social engineering, and genetic engineering. These three powerful forces are integrated and complex. We are psychic navigators. We are confronted with a labyrinth of confusion, sometimes trauma, and we discern through that confusion and tap into a highly developed psychic and spiritual knowing that opens information and guidance for a path forward. We are psychic navigators. So let's dive into some forces that we may encounter. Social engineering is another name for mind control on an individual and group level. Today, social engineering operates on an even more vast expanse, on a global level. The Tavistock Institute was founded after World War II and gained prominence by experimenting with shell-shocked soldiers. Maybe you've seen movies or read books about shell-shocked soldiers in the trenches of World War II. The Tavistock Institute wanted to find out how these men and women reacted to the trauma that they had undergone through World War I. And importantly, how their trauma affected their behavior. The Tavistock research led to shock trauma therapy. The Macy conferences adopted the Tavistock research and focused it on cybernetics. Cybernetics is a computer word meaning to steer something through a closed loop of information, a feedback closed loop of information. The Macy Conference gathered mathematicians, physicians, psychologists, economists, and one of the most famous people in the Macy Conferences was sociologist Margaret Mead. Together, they developed a cybernetic model. The aim was to model a human physiological system that receives information, think humans operating in a sensory world, then processes that information, and then feeds it back to change the environment and mind. It's a closed loop. They wanted to develop the means to steer this closed loop system in a designated direction. They eventually developed their models such that they could determine and predict human behavior with linear mathematical models. And we won't go into it today, but much of their work was the foundation for what we know of as artificial intelligence or intuitive intelligence that predicts scenarios for human behavior. The MK Ultra programs were hands-on human behavior and mind control of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, or better known as the CIA. Early in their beginnings, they adopted a two-step process to alter human behavior from the work of Donald Cameron. Donald Cameron first annihilated a person's memory via repeated electroconvulsive therapy. Some of these poor individuals received up to 12 treatments of electroconvulsive therapy a day. Then Cameron went to step 2. And step 2 was to give the patient, after the electroconvulsive therapy, he gave the patients repeated audio messages to create a new mind. Often patients were exposed to hundreds of thousands of tape messages. And then in the late 60s, early 70s, the CIA moved into psychedelic drugs for mind control. And today they turn their work to technology, surveillance, and the media. Another important aspect we're going to talk about today is genetic engineering or genetic brain research, and look at that history. First, let's look at the Genome Project, or the Human Genome Project. This is a project to map our gene sequence and started in 1984. It was completed in 2003, though it continues today and is integrated within many different scientific programs at universities, institutes, and private labs. The scientific assumption of the Genome Project was that faulty genes from parents were the cause of most disease. This turned out to be a rather weak assumption, especially after the discovery of epigenetics. So after over 700 genome publications and $100 billion, genetics has not found more than a fractional genetic base for disease. And yet it was touted as a great success. To go back and explain epigenetics, epigenetics is the environmental implication that softens and increases DNA within a human. Next was the decade of the brain. This was from 1990 to 1999. This was the Bush Brain Initiative. In comparison to the Human Genome Project, the decade of the brain was really seen as a failure. It didn't have the modeling and the mathematics and the science that the Genome Project had. So, in 2013, they began the Brain Initiative, or what we in the US call the Obama Brain Initiative. This is the construction of a brain activity map that is modeled after the Human Genome Project. The Brain Initiative has a vast reach, categorizing every cell type in the brain, mapping all the cell connections. And we read the headlines of its touted success, framed by the coming era of artificial intelligence, or the era of synchronicity, when we will be moved and one with robots and artificial intelligence. I don't know when that's going to happen or how that's going to happen, but when I lived in DC, I met a person. I met her as I was leaving yoga at noon. We just stood and talked for a few minutes in the parking lot. She told me that she had spent 30 years in government working on computer neural research. According to her, they were at a plateau. Artificial intelligence was going nowhere, and it stuck. When I asked her why it was stuck, she didn't respond, so I commented that maybe her programs were stuck because they don't know what consciousness is. Her response was, yes, that's precisely the problem. So the Obama Brain Initiative has had great achievements, as has the Human Genome Project and the Decade of the Brain. All of these achievements include sequencing the human genome, development of new tools for mapping neural connections, and the increasing resolution of imaging technologies, and the explosion of nanoscience today. We've seen some of that explosion as we've, in the past almost 3 years now, moved through the COVID pandemic. One of the mind control issues of the COVID pandemic concerns a theory called mass formation psychosis that was developed by a Dr. Malone. So psychosis is when people lose contact with an area of reality. So they're no longer in touch with reality, and they're termed and labeled psychotic. So mass formation psychosis is when a large part of society focuses attention to a leader or leaders, or like scientists or physicians, or a series of events of people hospitalized with COVID, and their attention focuses on one small point or issue within that. In mass formation psychosis, followers can be hypnotized and be led anywhere, regardless of data proving otherwise. A key aspect of the phenomenon is that the people they identify as the leaders, or the ones that can solve the problem or issue that they alone can solve, people will follow that leader regardless of any new information or data that comes forth. Furthermore, anybody who questions the leader's narratives are attacked and disregarded. And I think we can see that on social media with people being deplatformed and accused of only having conspiracy, even when scientific studies are proving otherwise. Technology is the new frontier of mind control. And once again, this technology includes geoengineering, social engineering, and genetic engineering. We're going to talk briefly now about this neurotechnology or brain-to-computer technology. Elon Musk, who I think now owns Twitter, I'm not sure, invented the program of the Neuralink. This person here has a cap, a Neuralink cap on, and you've maybe seen these pictures in the news or in the articles that you read. And this is rather non-invasive technology. So you wear a cap, and then you see images of people experimenting with electrodes in this cap, and this cap connects their thoughts to a computer so that they can receive and transmit information. Humans able to carry out actions through thought alone. So you may have seen people with the cap on sitting in front of a computer and moving the mouse without ever touching it, just moving it with their thought. There are also more invasive implants. This would involve developing a device that would embed in a person's head or brain, where it would then record brain activity and potentially record it, stimulate it, and guide it. So Musk has compared this technology to a Fitbit in your skull. This will ultimately connect your brain and nervous systems to all of your devices. So if you think about if you have a Fitbit, or if you wear a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, or Samsung Watch, and then that's connected to your phone, and you walk so many steps a day, maybe you have your blood pressure being monitored there, or some other health condition that you have. All of that information is being scooped up and added to your particular behavioral program, your individual behavioral program. Then there's an actually more invasive genetic engineering happening. This is the work of Dean Radin, who you maybe know from IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He oftentimes releases papers and studies about consciousness, and he has developed through IONS a massive database of people who meditate, have achieved altered states, religious practitioners, religious adepts, mystics, people who would exhibit different, perhaps broader forms of consciousness. And what Dean Radin has done is he's taken his database and now he's applying it to a commercial venture called Cognigenetics. This venture applies CRISPR technology to alter our psychological states and treat mental illness. So CRISPR tech actually edits our genes by cutting precisely our DNA and then letting natural DNA repair processes take over. So it both edits and steers genes to alter the human nervous system. And this is more invasive genetic engineering than wearing a cap or even having an implant, because it's affecting your entire DNA. If you remember in my presentation last year, I discussed DNA editing patents for brain to computer technology. Last year, I presented the work of Charles Lieber of Harvard. So to briefly review what I presented last year, I discussed nanoparticles and genetic alteration through vaccines and injections. I talked about the Harvard Hyman Professor of Chemistry, Charles Lieber, who had created a transistor so small that it can be used to penetrate cell membranes and probe their interiors without disrupting function. So in this diagram, the transistor is marked in the yellow line and sits near the bend in a hair-shaped lipo-coated silicon nanowire. So Charles Lieber was developing patents to use this nanoparticle lipid-coated silicon nanowire in vaccines and injections. Neural engineering is also happening in organizations like DARPA's N3 Phase 2 project. DARPA is a defense research organization in the United States that gathers scientists and the military to do future work of what a future soldier might look like. In their N3 Phase 2, they're using wireless, so non-invasive, wireless brain to computer interface for the military. How do they do that? They're using something called magnetoelectric nanotransducers, or MENTs, MENTS, that are localized in neural tissue, so in our brain tissue, for brain to computer applications. One of the key MENTs, or these magnetoelectric nanotransducers, are their incredibly small size. They are so small that thousands of MENTs can fit across the width of a human hair. So we are talking about radically small nanotechnology that we can't even imagine. Thousands of these MENTs fitting across the width of a human hair. These MENTs are injected into our circulatory system and then guided with a magnet to the targeted area of the brain. So you could get an injection in your arm that could move through your circulatory system, your heart, your lungs, your circulatory system, and then go into a specific area of your brain where then you would be communicated with. Your thoughts could be read, and you would also, as a military soldier, receive information and guidance. So, how does technology achieve neural or mind control of our thoughts and our nervous system? So we're not just talking about the brain here. We're talking about our entire nervous system. That we can maybe think of it as the vagus nerve that runs down the front of our body and down the back of our body, that when we feel trauma or we are triggered by something, our entire nervous system throughout all the nerves throughout our body begin to be triggered. Maybe our stomach gets upset, our heart races, we can't talk, we maybe get a flush over our body. So how does technology achieve neural or mind control of our nervous system or our thoughts? So let's just start with thoughts. Step one, they needed to develop technology to read the human mind. So they've already achieved reading a human mind through many experiments that they've done with mice, and they achieved that through optical neurotechnology. So in the beginning with the mice experiments, when a mouse was having neurotechnology or electrodes, they would watch which part of the brain of the mouse lit up so that they could tell that they were able to read. So they would give one guidance and the brain would light up. So when they flipped that around, they could see that, okay, when a mouse or a human's brain lights up, we know then what they're thinking or what they're feeling or what they're sensing. So being able to actually read a human mind was the first step. Step two was to be able to influence thoughts and actions. So it's no longer necessary to use barbaric MK Ultra electroconvulsive therapy that we talked about, or audio messages, and it's not even necessary to use psychedelic drugs and take people out of their bodies with psychedelic experiments. Technology is now using genetic engineering to create the desired humans who will react to the transmitted thoughts and directions that they are given. This is the new frontier of mind control, where we will react to transmitted thoughts and directions. So we will no longer be using our Apple Watch or our telephone to record our behavior, but the technology could actually tell us, get up and go for a walk, get up and take your medicine for diabetes. So or if you were mentally ill, say you were psychotic, they would give you directions of how to ground down into everyday life. So there are very many uses for this, but it's also mind control. Let's talk now about neural rights and how neural rights actually address these issues of technological mind control that are advancing at such a rapid rate and using this amazing nanotechnology. First, we have to understand that neural rights, or rights of our brain and our nervous system, are more than a medical ethics issue. So we're not talking about medical ethics here. Neural rights are a human rights issue. Our brain and our nervous system our brain is more than an organ. It generates all of our mental, cognitive, emotional, and spiritual abilities. Our brain is more than an organ. It has to do with the human rights that we have to think for ourselves and to have free will. Important questions in neural rights for exoconscious humans would be, what if a brain transmission directed us to separate from God or source? Now you may think, oh, that's never going to happen, but in actuality, during the Middle East war, the United States government was experimenting with how to divert the Muslim extremists in the war, how to divert them and separate them from God and their source. So this work has been going on for a long time, especially connected to God and source. Another question is, what if a brain transmission or receiving a transmission from an AI directed us to separate ourselves from our solar spirit or a higher self? What if that transmission just said, don't listen to your higher self anymore. We're going to tell you what to do and what to believe and how to act and how to behave. Next, what if a brain transmission directed us to separate ourselves from one another and our human community? We didn't receive a brain transmission during COVID, but we certainly began to separate ourselves from one another and our human community. 6 feet apart, wear a mask, don't go to church, don't go to school. They shut down all of us and they separated ourselves from our human community. These are all human rights issues that these neurotechnologies are going to bring to the fore. And we need to be thinking of them now as mature, adult, exoconscious humans. One of the reasons I wanted to do this talk is because I was so excited that in Chile, there's a Neural Rights Foundation. Not only a Neural Rights Foundation, but in 2021, Chile's Senate unanimously approved a bill to amend their constitution to protect brain rights or neural rights. And this is going to be signed into law by their president because it's already passed their Senate. So this neural rights bill from Chile will be defining mental identity for the first time in history as a non-manipulative right to protect it against technological advancements in neuroscience and artificial intelligence. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the futuristic leaders coming out of Chile, for all of South America, for the United States, for Canada, for all of the world to pioneer these neural rights protections? So specifically, the bill sets out to protect the right to mental privacy. You have a right to a private mind, the right to personal identity. You have the right to develop and hold within your body, mind, and spirit a personal identity that only belongs to you. You have a right to free will of thought, not to be implanted by electrodes, not to be implanted by a Wi-Fi signal that tells you what to think. And the bill protects your right to equitable access to all technologies to increase human capacity and protect against discrimination. Can you imagine if one person gets technology that makes them an IQ of 200, everybody would funnel right in to get the IQ of 200. So what Chile's law establishes is that scientific and technological development must be at the service of people, human individuals. This is a human right, not medical ethics, a human right. So the law established that scientific and technological development must be at the service of people, and then it will be carried out with respect for life and physical and mental integrity. This is a picture of the pioneering individuals in the Chile's Neural Rights Protection Act. I hope that guardians and exoconscious humans and every psychic consciousness group across the globe will get behind these pioneering individuals and begin to introduce these neural rights protections globally to every state and every sovereign area. We, as exoconscious humans, developed an exoconscious human Bill of Rights. We did it in 2008, and I have been able about 3 or 4 times to actually update the exoconscious human Bill of Rights. Then our preamble says we declare that exoconscious humans have the following rights and freedoms by virtue of confirmation of the extraterrestrial present and the shared human extraterrestrial field of cosmic consciousness, which is exoconsciousness. If you want to read further into the exoconscious human Bill of Rights, it's available at my website, which is exoconsciousness.com under the tab for Bill of Rights. And we have many similar rights that we as psychic humans need to make sacred today before we enter a time of technology when we're no longer able to access these rights. So today, I'm excited to share with you the recent launch of Exoconscious Humans TV. We invite you to join us. Our program explores what it means to be exoconscious within the context of the question, what it means to be human. Delving into this question is critical because today, as we discussed genetic and geoengineering that alters our body, our food, and the many products that we use, alongside these scientific modifications, our planet experiences cosmic adjustments from our sun and galactic forces. So our program discusses all of these issues in the context of also the Exoconscious Human Bill of Rights. We would love for you to join us in this television program. So in the weeks to come, our programs will deepen your knowledge of contact, strengthen your psychic abilities, clarify your moral sovereignty and your intentions, evolve your physical, emotional, and spiritual transformations, clarify your moral sovereignty, and allow you to co-create with ET, spiritual, and multidimensional beings. Our mission is to advance the leadership of exoconscious humans, and we as a community nurture one another's co-creations that support health and peace on Earth and our cosmos. So, how do you access Exoconscious Humans TV? You'll find us on the Conscious Awakening Network that is on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Or you can download the Conscious Awakening app on your smartphone store. It's free. Or you can directly find the Conscious Awakening Network on your smart TV on Roku, Apple TV, or Amazon Fire. When you are on your TV or your app, just search for the topic of contact and exoconsciousness. Then you can watch the episodes of Exoconscious Humans TV. You can also watch Exoconscious Humans TV on your computer online at consciousawakeningnetwork.org and go to the series tab and search for contact and exoconsciousness. And this is what will come up. These are our first 4 television programs for Exoconscious Humans TV. And you can watch it on your computer, on an app, or on your Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. I believe that Roku is widely available in South America and accessible for you. So please join our mailing list for program updates for Exoconscious Humans TV. This is our website, exoconscioushumans.com, And if you would kindly go to the contact page, enter your information, and we'll be sending updates as our programs change and our show grows. So it's exoconscioushumans.com/contact us. I would just like to thank you for inviting me to share with your community. I look forward to hosting shows on Exoconscious Humans TV that integrate the powerful work of the Guardians and can be a way to unite our two communities. And I hope to be discussing this with you in the future. So please have a wonderful conference. I wish I was there. And I just want to send best heartfelt wishes to you, all of my friends. Thank you very much for having me.